I want to live life to the hilt, make every day matter. I want to know that when my head hits the pillow at night, it is worn out from experiencing as much as I could, that I did everything I could to be as healthy and happy as possible. I have links in the description below for the videos for the 10-day, 3-month, 6-month, and 12-month progress updates, and due to some recent developments, this is my 18-month update. The echo a year ago showed an ejection fraction, or EF, of 45%. Ejection fraction is just a number that sort of captures how efficient or effective the heart is working. And the doctors at the time said, well, it's not great. 50 to 70% is kind of the normal band, but considering everything your heart had been through, we just gotten through all the rhythm issues, that wasn't that big of a surprise. Now, earlier than that, shortly after surgery, but before all the rhythm issues, I had a lower ejection fraction. In fact, they said it was even lower than the 43% I'd been at back when I had the hole in the heart a couple years earlier. And so it had already improved since then, and the doctors said that now, at that time, since I'd gotten through the rhythm issues, the surgery was complete and a success, that my heart ejection fraction should keep increasing from the 45% that they registered. A year ago, when they saw the 45%, they said, well, this is a good sign. It's already gone up from the 41% or whatever it had been right after surgery. We'd gotten through all the rhythm issues. I was living super healthy. I hadn't had alcohol or caffeine since before surgery, eating very clean, working out 1 or 2 times a day, low stress, getting my sleep. So we all expected that the ejection fraction would continue to rise from the 45% over the next year. However, when they did an echo just a couple weeks ago, they came back with the results of 41% for an ejection fraction, down from the 45% it had been a year ago. So this was a 10% drop in EF in a period where we all expected it to go back up into the normal range. I asked the doctor and he confirmed that it's as good as it's ever going to get. There's just really not much we can do about it. Well, what does this really mean? You don't have to be Hannibal Lecter to figure out this is a bad thing in general. But depending on the reference you look at, 50 to 70% is considered kind of normal for your ejection fraction. 41 to 49% is considered borderline function, and I'm at the very tail end of that, and anything below 40 is considered some level of heart failure or cardiomyopathy. Now, can I live normally at 41%? I'm doing it right now. I'm still going to the gym twice a day. I'm getting my sleep. I'm doing everything as healthy as I can. I know I can walk up the stairs and I'm not gasping for air like I was before surgery. So it depends on what your normal is and what your reference is. I won't feel as good as a lot of you folks that have better ejection fractions. That's just a reality. I feel better than I did a year ago or a couple of years ago. So I know I'm able to live like this, but as it continues to fall, that's going to get worse and worse. The fact is my heart is worn out, and as we see by this data point, it is continuing down the path towards congestive heart failure. According to one study, my heart already falls into the 25% mortality rate, which isn't good, and it's only going to continue to rise in mortality rate. In other words, your chance of dying basically as the ejection fraction drops. So now what? If you go back to the video from the 12-month update, I was pretty blunt with the clinician in the kind of information I was seeking at a very honest level. And I was told, if you want the Ferrari, buy the Ferrari. She said, if I were you, I would make a 5-year plan. And if you're actually still alive in 5 years, then make another 5-year plan, and that's probably about the most you're gonna get. Now, the surgeon that actually did the operation also said, if you make it to the end of this heart valve, that's probably the end of it. Nobody's gonna open you up again, fine. So if 5 to 10 was on the optimistic to max last time, that's when we thought that the ejection fraction was gonna continue to rise and the heart would continue to heal. Now it's going downward instead. So logic would say the 5 to 10 is probably now something less than that. As with any situation like this, you have to have a balanced look. There are people that will terribilize it and they'll think worst case, it's the end of the world, I'm gonna die tomorrow. That's not necessarily healthy, right? Because you're just gonna add stress, you're gonna add problems sleeping or destructive behavior, and you're gonna become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Now there are the other people that are going to live for hope and hope is never a strategy, and it's going to prevent you from being realistic about your real time limits, and you may short yourself on living the most in the time you have left. Now, yes, you do need to accept the grim reality of the situation, and yes, you also do need to stay optimistic, because having a positive attitude will improve your chances of survival and give you more time as well. The place I always like to start is with the objective best guess scenario and base as much of that on data as I can. So I have two data points. I have 45% and I have 41%, and that shows a 10% drop in that period. So with no more information than that, all I can do is create a curve that shows a continuous 10% drop over time. Is that what's really going to happen? Probably not, but until I get more data points to fill in the blanks, that's what I have to go on. I have another line for the estimated mortality based on ejection fraction, and the mirror of that line is the survival rate instead of mortality, right? You either live or die, right? So you've got mortality on one side, you've got survival on the other side. Now, I may not have paid a lot of attention in statistics class, but if I suddenly in year one had a dropped ejection fraction, then it makes sense that my mortality rate would associate with that ejection fraction. However, you have that risk every year and it kind of compounds. So let's think about a game of Russian roulette. Let's say I have a pistol and I spin the cylinder and I pull the trigger and I have a 5 out of 6 chance of surviving. But then if I pull the trigger again, and this is assuming I don't spin the cylinder again, but I pull the trigger again, now I only have a 4 out of 6 chance of surviving, and it goes down from there. But each time you pull the trigger, you have a certain probability of surviving. However, to make it to, say, the third trigger pull, it's the probability of 5/6 times 4/6 times 3/6, because you have to pass through each time to get to surviving that third trigger pull. So if I'm looking at my survival, each year I have a certain probability of survival, but the idea and what I'm trying to answer is, will I survive in 3 years or 5 years? Well, you have to compound or multiply the likeliness of surviving each of those years. It's not just about surviving year 3 or 5, because if I don't survive year 1 or 2, I never get there. So now when you take this and you look at a compounded likeliness of survival at that period, it goes down significantly, and it makes this curve on the graph. So for this graph that I made, you see the data points, and that's years since the 45% ejection fraction. So right now I am at 1 year since then, where I'm at 41%, which is data point 2. I have an estimated ejection fraction based on the 10% drop each year. I have an annual mortality rate, and then I have an annual survival rate, and then I have this total compounded survival rate. And you can see in the graphs which each of these lines, the orange line is the estimated ejection fraction, the gray line is the estimated mortality, the yellow line is the estimated survival, and the total survival is the blue line, which, as you can see here, it drops below 50% basically a year from now. And it drops below 10% at data point 7, which is only 6 years from now. So what this graph shows is that I have less than a 50% chance of surviving a year from now, and I have less than a 10% chance of surviving the next 5 years or so. Even if there was some exercise I could do differently or more than I'm already doing, the heart is not skeletal muscle. So I can go to the gym and I can get training that will improve my endurance or the size or whatever it is of the muscles that I have on my frame. But the heart tissue is something very different. In fact, as you exercise and as the heart works harder, it's actually a bad thing. So my heart is already enlarged for all it's been through. And as the heart enlarges, you would think, oh great, it's stronger, it's better. No, not the case. Because as that tissue grows, the chambers inside where the blood is actually shrink, because the muscle is growing, the chamber gets smaller. And what that means is the chamber shrinks, the heart has to work harder to pump more blood faster, because it's getting less blood per squeeze out of that chamber. And as it works harder, it continues to grow and it shrinks it more and makes the problem worse and worse, eventually sending you into tachycardia, which I've been in before, where the heart's just spinning up because it's trying to do everything it can to keep up with the demands. And eventually this problem just snowballs into failure. Early detection isn't always possible. In one study I read that of the deaths that occurred for these patients, 40% of them were sudden death. So you might have a little notice or you might not. I was told I'm not eligible for a transplant either. I was told about a medication at the last visit called Farxiga, and it's something that had reduced mortality specifically in diabetic patients. So the doctor mentioned it as a possibility to reduce mortality. Didn't sound real encouraged that it would change the ejection fraction, just reduce the mortality. I do need to research this drug a little bit more because most drugs have a whole laundry list of side effects from suicidal thoughts to anal leakage. So I will look into that a little bit more. Not thrilled about the option. Now, if this drug only improves mortality but doesn't actually improve my ejection fraction, then that means that my quality of life is still going to deteriorate, which isn't good. And I really don't have much interest in getting another year of sitting on the couch, unable to do anything I enjoy, breathing from an oxygen tank. So again, these are decisions you have to make as the time gets closer to deciding, is it really worth it or is it not? So moving forward, some of the primary considerations I have right now is the first and foremost is I have to keep doing all the healthy habits that I'm doing. That is the best thing I can do for myself. Secondly, I do need to research that drug a little bit more, learn more about it, and start to make an informed decision on whether that's an option or not. And I want to make that and any other decision as much as I can based on facts, data, reference points that are qualified, not on things like hopes or pessimism. In order to get more data, I've already requested a 6-month interval echo instead of waiting the full year. This is a very critical time because I'm starting to make decisions on things like retirement, where I want to live or move to, what else I want to do with my life, and I don't have a lot of time. So having that data point and being able to better predict my survival curve is really critical right now. And most importantly, as always, not just for me, but for all of us, I want to live life to the hilt, make every day matter. I want to know that when my head hits the pillow at night, it is worn out from experiencing as much as I could, that I did everything I could to be as healthy and happy as possible. And it's actually rather freeing being able to live every day like your last, because very soon it will be. And I'm going to be at complete peace with that because of how I live my life.
Subscribe to my YouTube channel below and let's celebrate turning fuel and air into adrenaline.